Yes, oh yeah. But you? Go to somebody else's, you know, but it's good.
Commission, and I welcome you to this hearing. The TSCC is a community oversight commission established by the Oregon legislature over 100 years ago. The commission oversees the budgets of all TSC member taxing districts, such as Prosper, and annually conducts a thorough budget review and certification process. Additionally, the TSCC holds public budget hearings to engage with district leadership and provide additional opportunity for public comment before budget adoption. I will now ask my fellow commissioners and the staff to introduce themselves and state if they have any business relationships with the district that could be perceived as a conflict of interest.
Good afternoon. My name is Todd Burton. This is my third year on the commission. I have no conflicts or stated business with Prosper Portland. My background was being a budget officer and finance manager for a number of jurisdictions, including at one point here at what was then Portland Development Commission. And I can't believe my friend Tony Barnes doesn't look any older than he did 20 years ago.
Hi, I'm Will Terry. This is my first year on the commission, and I have no conflict of interest. I am a former academic, a UO professor, and current economic consultant.
And I'm Matt Donahue, fifth year on the commission, serving this year as chair. My day job is as a municipal bond banker or municipal advisor, and I don't have any relationships with the districts that would be a conflict.
Hi, my name is Rita Moore. This is my second year on the commission. I'm a former policy analyst, former member of the PPS School Board, and I have no conflicts.
Pardon me, good afternoon. Pleased to be here, Commissioners. I'm Eric Kavarston, a retired city manager. I have no conflicts, and like Will, this is my first year as a TSCC member. Thank you.
And Allegra?
I'm Allegra Wilhite, and I'm Executive Director with TSCC. I'm also joined by Brittany Abieri, who is our budget analyst with TSCC.
Thank you. I guess we'll take the time to have the commissioners who are present introduce themselves.
Sure. Sounds good. Thank you. Would you like to start?
Good afternoon, and happy to see you all here this afternoon. Serena Stoudemire, Westlake Commissioner.
Hi, I'm Felicia Hagans. In my day job, I work at the Service Employees International.
Can't hear audio.
No extensive remarks, but just wanted to say thank you for joining us again this year. We always look forward to the opportunity to discuss the budget and some of our priorities and how things are going. So look forward to your comments as well. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you. Do we have any people signed up for public comment?
No, we have no one signed up in advance. If there is anyone here who would like to provide public comment, please indicate, and you're welcome to come up. Seeing none, no public comment today.
Okay, thank you, Allegra. All right, any introductory comments from Executive Director Wesley?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I have the first question. So, as we all know, our region has seen many changes in recent years, particularly in downtown. So we're wondering, how does Prosper define economic development in the downtown core these days? What do they see as its role in encouraging downtown development? What is your vision and your future for this area, and maybe how does that different from how you approach these things pre-pandemic?
Great, thank you. I'll take that question to begin with. First of all, it's a great question and something that has been on our minds a lot over the last few years, as you can imagine. Prosper Portland plays an essential role in driving Central City revitalization and partners with key city boroughs and downtown core stakeholders to foster investment, job creation, and positive economic activity. The city's 5-year economic development strategy, Advance Portland, has 4 core objectives, which each have activities that support economic development in the downtown core. These programs and activities include the expansion and recruitment of traded sector employers that are growing quality jobs, offering small business assistance and navigation resources, investment in key destinations like the James Beard Public Market, and financial sponsorship and technical assistance to a wide array of high-impact public events and activations like the Portland Winter Lights Festival, the Waterfront Blues Festival, and PDX Live. Prosper staff also continues to work with the West Side TIF Steering Committee to prepare for future catalytic investments that will be made with these resources. All of this work recognizes that the community's relationship to the downtown environment has shifted significantly over the last 6 years since COVID. In the future, our downtown success will rely on a healthy balance of uses from increased residential, arts and culture, recreation, and different kinds of workspaces. We also believe that the Central City will continue to be a major economic engine for both the wider city as well as the entire state. And we will work to ensure economic competitiveness that enables firms to successfully grow.
So, can you tell us a bit about the assessed value growth trends, particularly in downtown, and these initiatives that you just mentioned? Are those being supported through tax increment financing? And have we gone through some rethinking of whether tax increment financing is the right tool for downtown core in particular?
It's also a great question, and as you, I'm sure know, the trend has not been positive. Assessed value trends have been impacted by the market for income-based properties over the last several years. This has been the most significant in the downtown core area as income-based commercial and more recently residential properties have been appealed and reappraised due to higher vacancies and overall lower market values. The impact has resulted in large declines in taxable assessed value to points below the established frozen base or starting point for all 3 new Central City districts. We will not have a clearer trajectory of when increment may be generated by these districts until the county updates values later this summer and early fall with more recent appeal results and the impact of centrally assessed type properties that are managed by the state, which may change the initial estimates the county has had for that type of property. We anticipate that it may take several years for some of the values of the Central City districts to move above their initial frozen base. The 3 new East Portland districts are faring better since their assessed values have less dependence on income-based commercial property. However, there will be uncertainty for the 82nd and Sumner, Park Rose, Argyle, Columbia Corridor districts until the 2027 tax roll, as they are impacted by centrally assessed type property estimates that will be updated this summer as well. Although the decline in assessed value within the TIF districts means less availability of public resources for near-term investment, it also represents significant market opportunities for public and private investors to partner, reposition, and reinvigorate commercial real estate assets that have low-cost basis. Further, the opening of major destinations like the Darcel 15 Plaza, James Beard Public Market, and the Steelhead and AEG music venues will continue to add positive foot traffic and vibrancy to the Central City. In order to drive inclusive economic growth, we believe that TIF must be complemented by economic development programs that ensure the benefit of growth are shared equitably. This includes small business, workforce development programs, and events and activations.
Thank you.
So the James Beard Marketplace, can you talk about how much investment Prosper is putting into that relative to the other investors? And is that being impacted by this decline in TIF availability?
I think the short answer is yes. I don't know off the top of my head what we've committed to that. I don't know if Executive Director Wesley might know.
I have our interim development director, Amy Nagy, here, as well as our CFO, who can give us the exact figure of our today's investment for James Beard Public Market.
Yeah.
Crowded table, hello. Hi, for the record, Amy Nagy, Interim Director for Development Investment. Good to see you all. Hello. So it's at the moment, we have an investment. We have a loan with the James Beard Public Market, which was a strategic investment fund, so a SIF investment that we're making. We also are working with them on what we refer to as a PSEF loan, which is funded as an anchor destination. And so that would fund building improvements, including heating and air, ventilation, as well as electrical, et cetera. So around the building performance. And so we're in the underwriting with them at the moment. Oh, thank you, Tony. And then they are also in the midst of raising private capital and will also be pursuing new market tax credits. So I don't know if you want me to go line item, but that's a flavor of how that's coming together for them right now.
Do you know about how much we have in?
We're very excited about
Yeah, I think everybody is. Yes, and so they're targeting in late 2027, early 2028.
Do you know how much we have invested so far on behalf of Prosper?
Yes. So
Ballpark?
on behalf of Prosper right now, we have we've invested about $3 million through kind of citywide grants and investments funds.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Again, you're entering the second year of the 6 new TIF districts. Last year, you mentioned the 5-year action plans would be adopted in the first half of 2026. Are these plans finalized, and when do you think the public will start seeing projects funded in these new districts?
Thank you for the question. Prosper Portland and PHB can be co-convene community stakeholder working groups within the 3-year Central City TIF districts, so the Central East Side Corridor, the Lloyd Holiday, and the West Side, and from June 2025 through October 2025 to develop the action plans, as you mentioned. The plans have been drafted, but were put on pause due to Multnomah County's outlook. There's a Freudian slip for you, for revenue in the TIF districts. Prosper Portland and the Portland Housing Bureau will finalize the action plan when the TIF resources are available. A modest amount of program income that has been available from the concluded and sunsetting Central City TIF district will be used as an alternative path to cover some near-term work in the working group identified economic development investment and priorities within each of the Central City TIF districts for 2026, 2027. And then action planning for the East Portland TIF district, 82nd Avenue, east of 205, and the SPACC, or as we pronounce it, SPACE, is underway with the community leadership committees. And Prosper Portland and PHB anticipate bringing them to city council approval in spring.
Thank you.
So strategic investment fund was mentioned in the earlier answer here. So following up and going down that road a little bit in more detail. Same page, that's good. Your budget message mentions that the strategy for the SIF mentions the strategy for the SIF to support advanced Portland goals where TIF resources are not available. How do you balance the competing goals of spending funds to achieve this public benefit versus ensuring adequate capital funds that can replenish themselves? And, do you have a target level, sort of floor, and sort of what kind of returns did you trying to get out of this fund?
Thank you. I'll take that one. I'm going to read from prepared remarks. The Strategic Investment Fund was created from the 2023 Financial Sustainability Plan to include a return target of 7% from investments that align with Advanced Portland goals and unified housing strategy through access to capital programs and the acquisition of commercial and residential property. The board also adopted a financial investment and real estate policy that further addresses parameters of the fund. The interest income earned from the loans that can be used to cover operational costs or be redeployed with repaid principal to fund additional loans. The fund is replenished as the loans are repaid and providing a mix of short-term business loans, average term of which is 5 years, in addition to longer-term real estate loans, provides a predictable return of capital that can be redeployed to provide ongoing support to businesses and projects that align with the Advanced Portland goals. During fiscal years 23 through 2025, an average of 15 small business and commercial property loans have been approved, with an average interest rate of 6.4%. While loan production has been strong, overall financial return planned for the SIF is still below the overall 2023 Financial Sustainability Plan that had a $3.5 million return goal by fiscal years 25-26. During the last several months, the team has since presented to the board and city council a 3-year plan to invest $49 million in funds into 4 key areas. 1, business and commercial loans. 2, acquisition of NOI, net operating income generating properties. 3, middle-income housing loans. And finally, middle-income housing acquisitions.
So that's about the whole size of the.
Tony to confirm, or he's nodding his head.
So do you think, I guess just so that you think then it's.
Mentioned some of the investments are going to be acquisitions potentially, and those acquisitions would not, the principal won't be immediately repaid unless there's sales involved over time, but the NOI off those properties will help replenish the fund over a longer period of time. Just a little bit more nuance on this. On the $49 million, there's about $42 million left since one investment has already occurred this fiscal year, and that was for the acquisition of Block 33 here in Old Town.
So is that a more aggressive deployment of that fund than in past years?
Yeah, it's ramping up. Yeah.
Maybe don't leave yet. So the housing that you're talking about, did I hear this right? It's medium income? Is that the term of art?
Yeah, middle-income housing.
Middle income, okay.
Yes.
What does that mean in real terms, middle income?
To 120% of area median income property. Right. Yeah. Does that answer your questions?
Yes. So are you, I'm curious whether Prosper Portland and other developers are considering housing that is like multiple income levels in the same building rather than, having a building that's low income, a building that's middle income, a building that's, rich people. Are you looking at kind of changing up the way we're designating housing?
Yes.
Okay, good to hear. Would you care to elaborate?
A great example is one of our pending projects in Broadway Corridor, what has multiple layers of income from affordability to market rate to what we would even define as middle income housing as well. And that project is in partnership with PHB as well as all other bureaus within the city. And so that will be a really great example of what an entire new neighborhood in our central business could look like.
I'll just say, I actually think that this is a really important point for our city. And then I think that a really key lesson learned from previous housing projects, that you actually, to create vibrant neighborhoods and equitable neighborhoods where you can have a lot of different people from a lot of different communities, to create this sort of beautiful community that we hope we have in Portland means mixed income. And so the more that we can have mixed income communities throughout the city, then the people of the city will just thrive better.
So we have to ask you about Main Oregon, Main Old Town. Portland, the board recently voted to repossess 2 buildings in Old Town after a loan. I believe, is it a failed loan? Is that the right term that you would use? That's what we have in our question. What is your plan for these buildings? And do you believe you'll be able to fully recover the value of the loan and interest due?
Sure, I can take this one. So Prosper is completing its due diligence on the buildings, and it has not yet taken possession of them. Once that title is transferred, the agency plans to lease up and stabilize the buildings as long-term assets supporting economic activity. Staff have been directed to commence the advertising of the 2 buildings through a call for offers process, and that process opens this week and will close in late July. The property is going to be managed and leased by third-party professional firms, and it's expected to reach stabilization within approximately 3 years. Based on future market rate projections, it's expected that the value of the stabilized property will exceed the value of the original loan, including additional investment required to effectuate the business plan, which has been budgeted over the aforementioned timeframe.
So, my recollection on this is it was around a $7.2 million loan. Is that correct? Is that roughly the amount of the loan? And it
Can't
was
see Tony. Let him nod if he's within line of sight there.
Okay, thank you. So, but that was, I remember we asked you about this last year. That was in excess of even your internal loan borrowing standards. So I guess the question is, what have you learned from this experience, and what might change going forward if you have another opportunity like this to participate, but might have a similar level of risk or uncertainty?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So agency has to continue to pursue projects that meet multiple city and agency priorities, including supporting traded sector industries and neighborhood vitality. At the same time, seeking to provide flexibility on loan terms, it must balance those accommodations with safeguards to ensure prompt repayment and protection of public investment. The safeguards may include ensuring adequate borrower equity, personal corporate guarantees, and other covenants and requirements as identified through the underwriting process. I think a thing that I would add is, it was an ambitious project that I think is, falls within the realm of economic development, which is what this agency is suited to do. And I think, we should not walk away from other ambitious projects, but should make sure that we are being diligent in our efforts, through those guarantees, and making sure that the business plan can support those efforts in ways that, align with sort of the scale of risk that would be undertaking.
And was this loan, was this TIF money, or is this state? What was the source of the money for this?
I will point to Tony, who's off my camera.
Yeah.
There you go. So the source of the funding for the loan was what we call program income. It's TIF proceeds that have been invested and have returned to the district. So all the TIF proceeds originally that went into River District projects have been fully invested, over time, proceeds have come back in the form of program income. Those resources were used for this loan. So it wasn't TIF proceeds per se, but rather program income from past investments.
Thank you.
As you mentioned, the Broadway corridor has been in progress for a number of years. Can you give us an update? Have you seen movement forward in the last year, and what are you planning for fiscal year 26, 27?
I'll take that one, and that's a great question. The construction of streets, utilities necessary to support the development of the 14-acre site are underway with anticipated completion in spring of 2027. Two residential development projects are in pre-development. Parcel 4A is slated for development by Home Forward and the Urban League of Portland and will deliver an estimated 230 units of affordable housing. The team currently anticipates breaking ground in late 2026. Parcel 6 is slated for development by Related Northwest and will deliver an estimated 200+ of middle-income housing with construction anticipated to start in January 2028.
I'm going to read the follow-up, and then I have a follow-up to the follow-up. We understand there's new affordable housing development in the works in the Broadway corridor, a result of partnership with the City of Portland's Housing Bureau. And could you elaborate on the partnerships with other housing development organizations in in the Broadway corridor?
Yes,
And then
absolutely.
also if you're using partnerships in other TIF districts as well, and where would those be?
Okay. Well, Prosper Portland and the Portland Housing Bureau co-invested in the Nick Fish Building, which includes 75 affordable and market-rate apartments and 11,000 square feet of ground floor retail space. In general practice, Portland Housing Bureau leads notices of funding availability for projects in TIF districts with resources available within the housing set-aside. Currently, there is a notice out for a project at 102nd and Burnside within the Gateway TIF district. And I will look to partners to answer that second follow-up. You want to repeat the second follow-up?
Well, I think you answered it. So there's
Okay.
something pending in the Gateway District?
Yes,
Is that-
102nd and
Okay.
Burnside.
Okay. So you mentioned that at least one of these projects is in collaboration with Home Forward.
Home Forward and the Urban League of Portland.
Home Forward has been going through some times.
Interesting times.
Yeah. How is that going to impact, or is it going to impact the future of that development?
Well, I don't think we can speak for Home Forward, but I should say that I don't think it will have any impact on building of the units.
Yeah, and uniquely, the leader who is currently charged with leading Home Forward is a leader that we're very comfortable with and have history working with. He's the previous bureau leader for PHB. So we have tremendous confidence in his ability to continue partner because it's something he's been doing consistently.
How does the relationship work between Prosper and the Housing Bureau? I think it's 30 or 35% set aside for a TIF district go directly to housing. Is that correct?
No, I believe that's 45-55 split, but I'll let
Oh, I
Tony.
can't, yeah.
Yeah, so the, by city policy, the housing set-aside policy is 45% is allocated to affordable housing. It is district by district, and that set-aside policy is coming before council in the coming year for another look. Mechanically, what we do is have an intergovernmental agreement with the Portland Housing Bureau that manages that on an annual basis. So we look at our 5-year forecast and determine how much funding is needed to implement the housing set-aside district by district in those commitments, how much is needed in the upcoming fiscal year. And so we can plan on what resources are needed in what fiscal year, but still maintain that 45%, 55% over the life of each district.
So
District.
besides projecting what might be available for the housing set aside, how involved is the Prosper Portland Board and staff involved in decisions related to housing, or does that just go directly over to the Housing Bureau? I mean, selecting projects and having some sort of say in what's going to be invested and how it's going to be invested.
You know, typically, it would reside at PHB, but in the case of, for example, Broadway Corridor, that requires far more collaboration and cooperation amongst the bureaus. So that's typically the approach, is just to partner.
You probably recall, historically, you know, the agencies were combined.
Correct.
And then they were split off, what, maybe 15 years ago? And there's also some history to the set-aside itself. It was a lower number, I think about 10 years ago, it went from, what, 30%, Tony, to 45.
Right.
As housing became a bigger issue in the city council decided that more funding from Prosper should go, or Portland Development Commission in those days should go to housing.
Can I just get a little clarification? So when you have a partnership agreement with, you know, a Home Forward or somebody else, and PHB is involved, who, it's kind of related, but who's responsible for oversight? Is that, do you have a role? Is that solely within PHB? How do you divvy up the responsibilities?
It's both. It is shared oversight. We obviously focus on the components of a project that are more economic development leaning, and obviously PHB would focus on those that are more affordable housing leaning, but it is shared oversight.
That's sort of based on the use of the property. It might have housing with a economic development or retail
Correct.
component or some other sort of, okay.
Correct.
And the asset management and sort of surveillance then is shared between the two agencies?
Well, now we're kind of getting into, you know, who owns an asset, so that becomes a little bit more nuanced, Commissioner.
I was just going to say, I think Amy is the best, because I think it is. I think somebody could say that.
So it shows up, Amy Nagy, Interim Director, it shows up in a couple of different ways, right? And so by and large, to the chair's point, Prosper Portland is relatively new to developing housing in the entity that we know today. And so there are specific projects like the Nick Fish, like Lentz Commons, where we have developed housing or we've invested in the housing. Typically, to date, we haven't owned a lot of housing, we've invested. And so it becomes the obligations and the, become that of the developer and then the eventual operator, if that makes sense. On some of what are gonna be our larger sites like Broadway Corridor, OMSI, those kind of larger master plan redevelopment sites, there's more opportunity for collaboration and co-investment with PHB and Prosper Portland. Some of those are newer models that are to come. So there's a scale question, and there's also a gap that we've seen now in the market, which is that middle income that we didn't always have, that Prosper Portland at the moment is stepping in to fill, particularly with our strategic investment funds. Does that help?
Yes and no. So this, I am by no means an expert in any of this, so forgive me if I'm asking stupid questions here. Shared oversight responsibilities is tricky. It's difficult. And especially if you're talking about like mixed-use developments where you have a piece and PHB has a piece. So like how does it work in practical terms? Do you have, is there an oversight committee that has representatives from both of these agencies or?
Again, every deal is different, but in some there's a condominium difference, right? So PHB will own the housing or they will have a developer that owns the housing. And so they are therefore responsible for the affordable housing. We are not engaged in that. If we have the ground floor, which is the commercial, the economic development that Cornell was speaking to, we are responsible then for that ground floor.
Okay.
But we then don't have anything to do with their tenants, their leasing practices, the repairs, et cetera. That all sits with PHB and their agreements that they have with those operators.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Three of the six, half of the new TIF districts are east of 82nd. We think that some would argue that existing East County districts like Gateway and Lents districts have not met expectations. What lessons learned from these districts will inform your strategy for the new areas? Does East Portland need a different model of urban renewal than more central areas? And if so, what does that model look like? This is a multi-part question, I apologize. In particular, is TIF the right tool in the new areas east of 82nd?
I'm happy to answer that. I feel like what I will say to start this question is we have a perennial conversation about whether TIF is the right economic development tool in our city over as many of you have experienced of your engagement in the many years longer than I have. It is a constant question. Is TIF the right tool? Where is it the right tool for? Where isn't the right tool for? And I would say we should keep asking ourselves that question from now until the end of time. And yes, we should continue to use TIF on the east of 82nd and throughout the city because it's one of the best tools we currently have. And so I think the Lents Center investments, I live in the Lents Town Center area, and I would say from when I moved in till when the TIF district came into fruition, it's wildly different. And I don't know, maybe it didn't meet the expectations of like the models that people built, but it's a wonderful neighborhood that has been created and has done some really incredible things. So it's resulted in 406 new housing units, 299 are affordable. It's developed some sort of community-centered projects, including the Mercado, the Woody Guthrie Place, 72nd and Foster, Lents Commons, and the Asian Health Services Center. 25 transportation infrastructure projects, which are still going on, and I'm very tempted to complain about, but I'm just going to keep moving forward. Increased community safety and livability, connectivity. And we recently closed on the 92H property that will result in an additional 219 housing units. So the Gateway investments are guided by the Gateway Action Plan. Their plan is prioritizing small business support, livability through grants to nonprofits, activations, and public infrastructure improvements and housing production. So there's several key projects under there, including construction of Northeast 100th Avenue extension and sidewalk public improvements, pre-development at 102nd and Pacific, a 5-acre vacant site planned for middle-income housing, and investments in activation coordination with the City Council, District 1 councilors in the area. And the investment timelines were extended in both districts as a reflection of the market demand. And the agency has moved to a co-creation model for the development and implementation of the 5-year district action plans under this model. So Prosper Portland and PHP, the city council appointed advisory committee, all identify their priorities and assign a budget for the implementation plans. And they are revised every 5 years to be either updated or recreated.
I'm inclined to ask if there were, if the 5-year action plan, for instance, reflects any lessons learned. Is there something you would do over again if you had to?
I do. I think here's the thing. I'm fairly new to the Prosper Portland board, so other folks Tavo should feel free to answer. But what I think I've seen the lessons learned is the level of community engagement into deciding what the investments are going to be in these plans. And so that level of the community engagement of the community that actually lives in the district, I think is a really key part of making the TIF successful in those districts. And looking at the layering on sort of what the community wants plus the Prosper's action plan, I feel like is a lesson learned in getting to the outcomes that we want to have in the district, as opposed to having a list of hopes and dreams that are not developed by the people in the district, that the people in the district can oppose, as we've seen, and harsh lessons learned there. And instead, you're really building community, right? That's what you're trying to do in each of these TIF districts. So to build community, you have to have community, and I think that's the biggest lesson learned. I think the other piece of this is we know that I think we're all sitting in a lesson learned about how broader economic development will drive the returns in these TIF districts. And so I think that this is a real challenge in our city overall, right? We're underperforming in areas around our city. If our downtown isn't vibrant, the impact on the rest of our city is a challenge, and we have pretty large economic headwinds in our city and in our region. So
I'm inclined to ask, maybe this is a Tony question. Is there anything in particular about local improvement districts that would have been useful in the Gateway project in particular?
I'm sorry, can you ask a question?
LIDs. I wonder if more extensive use of LIDs, I've heard complaints, I'm not necessarily voicing my own opinions, but if more extensive use of LIDs in the Gateway project would have been useful.
Amy, do you want to take that question?
So again, I would offer that LIDs can be extremely useful. We're using them right now on Broadway corridor as you think about land development, right? And you're prepping for the vertical to come. It is an obligation of repayment though for future development, right? As they move in. I'm not quite sure. I think it's also more project specific. So it's whether or not a project can actually afford an LID. So there are moments where TIF has been used a lot, and it is still eligible in East Portland for infrastructure investment when you actually just need the grant to cover it, or you just need the city to cover it. There's an LID opportunity when the actual development can afford it. And so not knowing the specific project, it's a little bit hard to say whether or not that would have been helpful. Yep.
So the follow-up question involves the unfortunate closure of the grocery stores. Now I believe it's plural. This was a serious blow to the community. There's serious concerns about a food desert. In light of that, what is Prosper's role in stimulating economic development within the Gateway District? And what can you share about projects in progress to address community concerns?
Yeah, I want to start with just naming that having another food desert in East Portland, there's food deserts in East Portland before the closure of these 2 grocery stores. So having these grocery stores close again in East Portland is concerning. And the general closures of grocery stores and what are low-income communities throughout our country is incredibly concerning. And I think it's very hard for cities across the U.S. to manage this. And so I think the work that we've started to move forward on implementing the action plan, I think, can provide some hope. And I do think that we do need to rethink what sort of grocery stores look like in our current environment and what retail looks like overall. And with the incredibly large footprint, the unwillingness to locate in low-income communities, the affordability issues, et cetera. So I think one of the things that the action plan includes is support for small businesses and housing production activations and livability. So I think that the thing cut out. Am I supposed to wait, or should I just keep rolling? Okay, I'm just gonna keep rolling. Developing a Healthy Communities Initiative grant program that will provide funds to grocery stores, providing fresh foods and community services. And the grant funds will be used for capital improvements to offset the high cost of establishing or renovating a grocery store, especially given their large footprints. And I think that we had a wonderful discussion that was facilitated by Amy here at the Prosper Board about what that needs to look like. So access to being able to use the SNAP program at those grocery stores, which is under threat as well. And the WIC program, which is also under threat as well. So.
I'm sorry, I think I missed these grants that I gather would help subsidize grocery stores in at-risk areas. That's something you're considering, or it's something that's in motion? Or?
We're in the process of developing grants to do help do renovations that would allow for grocery stores that fit the footprint of the community there.
Are you watching New York City?
I have personally a lot of thoughts about. I don't know how much I can. Look, I think that the grocery store problem and the can you do city-owned grocery stores is a really good question, and I know that the mayor of New York City is looking into that and seeing that. I think we have programs in our country right now that are under threat that protect low-income communities and protect grocery stores. I've also thought a lot about the GSA system, the Government Services Administration that's for veterans, and how they run and operate their grocery stores. Could you replicate that on a city scale? Could you replicate that on a statewide scale? There's lots of questions around the function of government and what has been a considerable private market. I will say, it's very hard to do that. At the same time, the federal government is cutting millions and millions of people off food assistance and reducing services for pregnant women to access food. So I'm not sure how we solve these huge issues as a city, because we're not the only city who's struggling with this idea that you have a private market that doesn't want to locate in low-income neighborhoods that sell something that is an absolute need at a cost that the neighborhood cannot afford, and then at the same time, we're cutting subsidies for the neediest people in our communities. I'm incredibly troubled by that. And I think Gateway is one symptom of a very large national problem. And so I think that we all should sort of be leaning in right now to figure out how we can solve this in every single community. So I guess I'm really open, Rita. Dr. Moore.
Thank you. How do you see Prosper's long-term role in workforce development? And talk about this approved budget and how workforce development dollars are utilizing this current budget and what you hope to accomplish with those.
Thank you for that question. I'll take that one as well. And I'll just note off the top that workforce development is very important to Prosper, and we see that as a big goal of our economic development activities. And it's also something that I don't think the general public realizes that Prosper does as much funding of and is as active in as it actually is. A lot of people think of Prosper as an extension of the Portland Development Commission, and they think of big infrastructure type projects, but we do a lot of things that affect individuals, and workforce development would be key to that. So that's my own editorial. The prepared response is more like this. $2.8 million is dedicated to grants, including $958,000 in general fund, $1.6 million in CDBG, grants, and $229,000 in enterprise zone, and $366,000 for staffing and overhead from the general fund. Prosper Portland invests in workforce development programs that help low-income Portlanders connect to and compete in their regional economy. In partnership with Work Systems, Inc., and a network of service providers, Prosper Portland co-invests in youth and adult workforce services and directly administers the Community Workforce Navigator Program. All three of these programs will be impacted by the general fund reduction this year. Adult workforce development. The Economic Opportunity Program partners with 5 providers to offer individualized career coaching, skills training, and support services to low-income adults facing multiple barriers. Services typically last 3 years. In fiscal year 25-26, Prosper Portland invested $1.1 million to serve approximately 600 participants. The program will operate with one fewer provider in fiscal year 26-27. One fewer provider FTE in 26-27. Youth workforce development. The Next Gen program supports youth ages 16 to 24 who are disconnected from school or lack the skills needed for college or career track employment. 5 providers deliver up to 3 years of case management and career or education support. Prosper Portland's fiscal year 25-26 investment was $1.4 million, serving about 350 youth. The program will operate with one fewer provider FTE in 26-27. Finally, the Community-Based Workforce Navigator Program. This program offers neighborhood-based workforce services for job seekers facing significant barriers, including low-income and limited English residents. In fiscal year 26-27, the program will be reduced from 4 full-time navigators to 3, based in neighborhood prosperity districts or workforce providers to deliver support. The fiscal year 25-26 budget was $469,000, serving more than 600 participants.
There's a number of players in the workforce development arena. How would you characterize the coordination and cooperation amongst different agencies in that sphere?
Boy, I don't have a good personal feel for their interaction. I think it's been a fairly efficient system, and I think we've tried to have these various programs and providers operate together. Do you want to add anything?
No, Chair is correct. You're right that there are a couple different players in the ecosystem, but uniquely they work well together. Our role typically is as funder, and so we're in a funding posture and providing oversight, but it's a pretty collaborative approach.
Thank you. So this fiscal year, Prosper Portland will fully implement a new loan, grant, and technical assistance program using Portland Clean Energy Fund support, or PCEF, to support small businesses and commercial development. Roughly how much money do you anticipate spending on these purposes next fiscal year? And how do you plan to communicate these opportunities to the community?
Sure, I can take this one. So PCEF funding supports 3 distinct programs, each with their own outreach strategy. Marketing for the Business Energy Efficiency, BEE grant program of the FY 26-27 budget of $6,126,922, and 82nd Avenue specific grants for fiscal year 26-27 budget of $622,165. Began this fiscal year and has resulted in 292 applications to the program, with 63 grant awards made to date. The Access to Capital program for fiscal year 26-27 budget of $9,761,892 funds the anchor destination and office to residential conversion projects. All of these funds are allocated to eligible projects, which are expected to begin construction by the end of the calendar year 2026. Lastly, there's the Contractor Capacity Program, which is funded at $1,373,705 in fiscal year 26-27. Combines training, navigation, and access to capital elements to comprehensively support contractors transitioning into the green construction industry. Prosper is partnering with Earth Advantage and EverCity Collaborative to offer trainings to residential contractors seeking to gain certification through the Building Performance Institute. For commercial contractors, Prosper Portland, in partnership with EcoReal, will provide training opportunities for LEED Green Associate and LEED Accredited professional credentials. There's additional funding through a new IGA that was signed this month for another PCEF grant program called the Clean Industry Program. Funding for FY 26-27 is $5,986,633.
I did have I'm sorry, just a clarifying question. So 7, 9, 16. That was 18 million before the last grant you just mentioned, which I think adds another 6 million. So that maybe 24 million or something like that for FY 27 from PCEF?
That tracks, and then I'm looking to Tony for a head nod if my quick math is correct.
Thank you very much.
So I'm wondering if this might be a little stretch, but Commissioner Hagen's very eloquent discussion about the challenges for groceries and grocery facilities in certain parts. Is there any opportunity to use some of these resources to leverage some of that availability? I know it's probably used more for a physical infrastructure type of asset as opposed to operational, but is there any way that that could be another opportunity for the use of these dollars?
Sure, I would defer that to Tony on just use of funds and applicable use of funds.
Amy, no.
Or Amy, no.
So as of right now, the PCEF funds are not necessarily allocated through the Healthy Communities program that's directly focused on grocery. We do have the Building Energy Efficiency grant that is funded with PCEF, and that grocery stores would be eligible for that. So that's capturing opportunities around refrigeration, HVAC, et cetera.
Just to put a finer point
Yeah.
on it, they're not earmarked in a way that would specifically help grocery stores.
That's correct. Right, that's correct. Everybody comes through and there's a scoring criteria.
Can
Can I ask a in-the-weeds question about HVAC?
Sure.
For PSEF funds or any project that you're working on, do you require that new HVAC systems or modernized HVAC systems meet the new indoor air quality standards?
I would have to double check. I mean, my answer is a confident yes, but I would want to double check exactly which standards you're referring to. We also, as part of the work with PSEF, have an energy consultant that is also working on those projects, and so they are verifying that they meet the PSEF requirements as well. So based on, PSEF runs pretty stringent requirements, and so I would like to say I'm at a 95% yes,
Okay,
but I can follow up with you if that's helpful.
I would appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Last year, you introduced a pilot program with PSEF to offer $60,000 per unit for office to residential conversions. Can you share how that that pilot program is going and how many projects have enrolled? Based on what you know so far, could this be a viable option at scale?
Yes, I'll answer that. Thank you. So currently, 2 projects are enrolled in the conversion pilot program, and other developers have expressed interest if more funding becomes available. Together, these projects will create 76 new middle-income housing units. Both projects are expected to submit permit applications in late summer and begin construction in early 2027. Sorry. I should also disclose that my firm is developing one of the projects. And I also want to express that executing a conversion project is complex, as you can imagine. Financing is one piece, probably the most critical piece of the puzzle, but increasing scale will require considering code modifications to make these conversions easier and less costly, such as other cities like Vancouver, BC have done.
Where are these projects located? Is that something you can discuss?
Yeah, ours is on the Central East Side, and the second I think is in
Old Town.
Old Town, yeah. Yeah, Cascade Building. Let's see, and to follow up, conversion projects face many technical and financial barriers. They require a significant amount of public subsidy to be feasible, as we've seen in other cities who are effectively completing these, and the PSEF program is critical to scaling office to residential conversions in the city.
Is there some point at which it makes more sense to, for long vacant commercial properties to just tear it down and start all over again?
For sure, at some point. I'll say at a high level, the city benefits when it can preserve and reinvest in existing buildings, especially given the significant public investment and carbon emissions already embodied in these structures. I want to emphasize that there's a twofold effect here. We avoid demolishing an existing structure where you would transfer tons of embodied carbon into a disposal site. And then you're also not needing to procure tons of carbon-expensive materials in order to build a new structure. So I believe that this program aligns strongly with the PSEF policy goals. That said, our experience with the pilot program and research from other cities shows that every building is different, as you insinuated. Each has its own design constraints, construction challenges, and market conditions. As a result, the decision to convert, hold, or demolish and rebuild must be evaluated on a case-by-case basis to determine the most financially viable option for the property and for the property owner. We can also depend on those financial stakeholders who will also be assessing if the property is more valuable scraped versus having an existing structure on it, particularly lenders who are involved.
Did you happen to look at Kansas City, Missouri? They've done some really remarkable work in these conversions of office to residential, and particularly larger buildings. What we saw when we were there a few years ago is really, really impressive.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to consider other cities. I think Vancouver's a better consideration because they're dealing with the same seismic issues, which tends to be the biggest barrier in terms of costs. And they've relaxed the codes a little bit for that purpose. I think one thing that happens is from a policy perspective, is that we have much higher standards, life safety standards for residential as opposed to commercial office. I mean, from one perspective, that's a little bit silly because frequently the occupancy in terms of number of bodies in an office that's operating is just as higher than in a residential property. But I think the idea that someone might be asleep and there could be a seismic event and may not be able to egress the property is what folks are concerned about. But it is a consideration. I mean, frankly, probably 80% of our housing stock does not meet today's code. So it is something to think about. Should we be moving out of all those homes?
Okay, I'm good. One last question. The city council has adopted a new social housing fund that's relatively modest in size, but it's sort of, seed money. Is Prosper Portland thinking about social housing as kind of a new model for development?
So there's competing definitions of what social housing is, so let me call that out first. Prosper's position and our role in housing is when it is a middle income or workforce housing, or in partnership with PHB where there's different components, meaning it's mixed use. So we're gonna stay in our respective lane. And a better answer to that is when a concrete definition is settled with council on what social housing is, we can be better supportive around what that could look like in the future.
Fair enough.
Well, thank you so much. It was a great discussion. Thank you for your expertise that everyone has shared and your humoring our follow-ups. I think we appreciate when we learn a lot every time when we meet with you guys, and definitely appreciate your mission and efforts on behalf of our city. So on that note, I will close the hearing, and I will gavel open a regular business meeting of the TSCC. Commissioners, any additional comments on the budget? Okay. Executive Director, will you review the recommendations for the certification letter?
Yes, and first I would like to say a public thank you to Prosper Portland Budget and Finance staff. They are dedicated, professional, and a pleasure to work with throughout the year, so thank you for your partnership. We as staff found the budget estimates to be reasonable for the purposes stated and in substantial compliance with budget law. Staff suggests no recommendations or objections to the fiscal year 26-27 approved budget.
May I have a motion authorizing the commission to sign the certification letter as presented?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously authorized. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you, and thanks again for joining us. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started then. The June 17, 2026 Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners meeting is now convened. Hannah, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Alvarez?
Here.
Commissioner Chris?
Here.
Commissioner Hagans?
Here.
Commissioner Stoudemeyer Wesley?
I'm here.
And Chair Cruz.
Here, thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read a short notice. As required by state law, Prosper Portland invites the public to access and attend this meeting in person. There's also YouTube live stream video of the meeting, and the public has had the opportunity to arrange in advance to provide virtual testimony. The public may provide written testimony to the commission by emailing prospercommissioners@prosperportland.us. Again, prospercommissioners@prosperportland.us. Okay, would anyone like to make a commissioner report this month? Okay, then we'll go straight to the executive director report with Cornell Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. Prosper Portland's Office of Events and Film, working in partnership with Travel Portland, has announced this year's post-production grant recipients. 4 feature films have been selected for funding aimed at supporting the completion of locally made projects and empowering Portland filmmakers to grow toward larger, more resourced productions. From a competitive pool, 4 projects were selected to each receive $7,500 in post-production funding. Dragathon, Meeting Hate with Joy, Sanse Sensibility, Albina Music Trust, Echoes of Albina, and Are We Cool? Congratulations to the grantees and thanks to Elise Taylor, Amanda Park, and Michelle Comer for leading this great effort. On Monday, June 8th, our own Big Joe Mollusky spoke at the groundbreaking for the Courts 2.0 skate park project at Portland State University. Joe was joined by several members of our development and investment team, including Jennifer Manhard and Brian Moore, who are on hand to celebrate the skate park project, which Prosper supported through a community livability grant. Thank you, Joe, for your work. Wednesday, June 10th, Joe and Jennifer were at it again. This time, they, along with Amy Nagy, attended the groundbreaking for the International School's new playground. Prosper Portland was able to provide $300,000 in a community livability grant to the new playground, which will open this fall and will be a community-serving park during non-school hours. On yesterday, several members of our team joined Mayor Wilson at the groundbreaking for the Alaska Airlines Maintenance Operations Hub near PDX. Prosper Portland supported this project by ensuring it qualified for an enterprise zone designation. Big thanks to Pam Neal, Faith Aiken, Andrea Gall, Eric Knoll, Allison Schweiger, Angela Rico, and Drew Fitzpatrick, and Shabri Vickers for their work on this $135 million project that, when finished, will provide more than 100 new full-time jobs for local residents. Last night, I was invited by our development and investment team on a tour of the recently restored Paris Theater here in Old Town with Paris Theater owner Chris Pink. I'm pleased to note Prosper Portland has been a longtime supporter of the redevelopment of the theater, and a special shout out to Prosper's Sarah King for work on this project. I encourage everyone to visit canportland.com for more information on this historic gem. Tomorrow evening, I, along with an array of project partners, will participate in a pre-event kickoff for the Waterfront Blues Festival. The Blues Festival runs from July 2nd till the 4th at Tom McCall Waterfront Park. You can find more information on the event, including the full event lineup, at waterfrontbluesfest.com. And I also want to thank once again Amanda Park and Michelle Comer with our events office for their ongoing collaboration with and support for this legendary Portland event. Finally, looking ahead, I am excited to mention that next week I will join Mayor Wilson and other leaders to celebrate the opening of the National University of Natural Medicine's new facility downtown Portland. This event represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity to strengthen Portland's downtown core. Prosper Portland provided a $300,000 grant to the NUNM, which supported critical building improvements in the approximately 11 million investment and helped the university move into the Woolworth building. This move retains nearly 200 jobs, 400 students, and more than 13,500 annual patient visits in Portland's Central City and aligns with several advanced Portland goals. Chair Cruz, this concludes the Executive Director's report.
Great, thank you very much. Great report. Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve our minutes for the May 13, 2026 meeting?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Motion is second.
Thank you. All right, are there any comments, changes? No? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved as submitted. Next up, do we have any public comment? This is where we ask if anybody has signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda.
No, no one has signed up in advance. Do we have anyone in person? Seeing none, we have no public comments.
Okay. All right, well, as I mentioned earlier, the public can provide public comment to the commission by emailing prospercommissioners@prosperportland.us. Again, prospercommissioners@prosperportland.us. Okay, next we have our consent agenda. This is just item 7. It's an action item authorizing a short-term interfund operating loans. It is resolution number 7649. Would someone like to make a motion to approve resolution 7649?
Moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Consent agenda item passes unanimously. Next, we have a regular agenda item. This is item 8, adopting budget amendment number 3 for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026, and making appropriations. And Courtney Cohn, interim principal budget analyst, will present. Courtney, welcome.
Sorry. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Cruz, Executive Director Wesley, and Commissioners. My name is Courtney Cohn. I'm the Principal Budget Analyst here, and I am presenting our third budget revision, our final budget revision. And I'm going to go rather quickly, but please feel free to stop me if you have any questions. So just our reminder about why we do budget revisions, why we take them to the board. It's required by law that any changes to the budget that result in an increase in expenditure appropriations by fund be approved by the governing body, the board. Prosper's appropriation categories are administration, economic development, infrastructure, housing, and property redevelopment. And it's our practice to update all revenue and expenditures in our budget revisions, even if they are not required to be brought to the board. Just key changes in our third budget revision. We decreased our TIF proceeds based on what is needed to draw and what is authorized by the city. There are also adjustments related to the business management fund at closeout, which is being closed out into the general fund for cash flow purposes. And we're adding budget for the reconciliation of operating reserve balances on several disposed of properties. And then finally, we're adding appropriation for the Healthy Communities Grant Program. So this slide shows a summary of the changes to each of our appropriation categories. Administration increased by $56,000 for year-end adjustments related to facilities and human resources. Property redevelopment increased by just over $1 million for the in part for the Healthy Communities Grant Program, and then also to add appropriation to clear out the operating reserve on our properties that we no longer own. A good portion of this was in the Business Management Fund. I'll also note here that transfers and contingency decreased mainly because of the Business Management Fund closeout, and reserves decreased sharply, mostly related to TIF proceeds in Gateway. So those TIF proceeds were not needed for this fiscal year, and they've been added to forecast year budgets. So that's actually all I have. Oops.
I assume we have no public testimony on this. So would the commissioners have any questions, comments? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote then. All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve resolution number 7650 regarding the budget amendment?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, no further comments then. All those in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Great, passes unanimously, thank you. Okay, next up, we have two more budget-related items, and Tony Barnes will present on both of these items. First, we have item 9, an action item approving reduction in force and expressing appreciation for the dedicated service of impacted employees. And item 10, an action item adopting the annual budget of Prosper Portland for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026, and making appropriations. And actually, I think that those dates are incorrect in my script. Should be 2026 and 2027. So, thank you. Okay, Tony Barnes, welcome back.
Well, good afternoon, Chair Cruz, Commissioners, Executive Director Wesley. I'm Tony Barnes, Prosper Portland CFO, and today I'll be presenting on resolutions 7651 and 7652. And following my presentation, I'll hand it over to Executive Director Wesley for final comments on both items. So Resolution 7651 is a resolution approving the reduction in force for the agency. I'll be touching on elements of that resolution as part of the adoption of the 26-27 budget, which is also before you as resolution 7652. As part of the budget adoption and in alignment with state budget law, the board may adopt the budget for the upcoming fiscal year following approval of the budget by the Budget Committee and after the TSCC conducts a hearing and certifies the approved budget. City Council, acting as Prosper Portland's Budget Committee, approved the budget on May 21st, and the TSCC certified the budget just this afternoon. The board may make any change to the budget at this stage, so long as any fund appropriation is not increased by more than 10%. And I'll be reviewing several recommended changes as part of our recommended changes before you today. To provide a little bit more context on the history of the budget and process to date, I'll recap a couple key steps. As the mayor's proposed budget was completed in April, it became clear that the $2.1 million in one-time general fund was not going to be fully restored in the mayor's budget. And as part of the mayor's guidance, we also prepared 5 and 10% cut packages in accordance with the mayor's guidance that would further impact the general fund programming. Mayor's decisions included a $763,000 reduction, or 7% of our ongoing budget, that impacted the Inclusive Business Resource Network and Workforce Development Services. But however, the decisions did add back $1 million in one-time general fund resources for a citywide storefront program, a repair program, and $1.1 million to restore some funding for workforce development and support deployment of workforce and storefront grants. Prosper Portland released its proposed budget, parallel to the mayor's proposed budget on April 21st that incorporated these decisions. The proposed budget also incorporated all TIF action plan programming, as well as the SIF investment plan that staff had prepared and shared with the Community Budget Committee and stakeholders over the last 6 months. The proposed budget also recognized operating constraints due to the shifts in the general fund funding and lack of new TIF and SIF generated resources. As part of the proposed budget, the very difficult decision was made to make a reduction in force by a net 10 positions, roughly 10% of the positions of Prosper Portland. Through May, staff also participated with the Community Development Service Area to present in more detail on Prosper's budget with City Council. Council ultimately approved the budget on May 21st, making the following additional changes, in addition to not making any reductions to the mayor's proposed budget. The changes were adding $197,000 in general fund for business district capacity grants, $100,000 add back for workforce development programming, and $192,000 from the recreational cannabis tax contingency at the city into the Inclusive Business Resource Network, partially offsetting or largely offsetting the loss of general fund resources through cuts. The final result of all the changes results in a total change in general fund support from the current year of $13.1 million to $12.9 million. As noted in the graph, ongoing funds in blue that we consider part of the next year's base are shown in blue, and the one-time funding is shown in green. While overall funding is less for the current year, the ongoing funding is increased slightly, but the purpose of those funds has shifted from more internal operations focus to more supporting grants, supporting workforce development, as well as the storefront and repair grant program. Overall, general fund support has declined about 20%, or $3.1 million since fiscal year 24-25. And that was the year that most of the general fund was increased as a result of presenting the financial sustainability plan and request for the boomerang funds. The overall programmatic impact resulted in a 6% net increase for community-based district support, a roughly 0% change in the inclusive entrepreneurship programming. This is because of the add back of the recreational cannabis tax resources by council. And then about a 19% net decrease to workforce development. And this was not just because of general fund, but also because there was some one-time SIF funds that council allocated for this year, in the last budget cycle that expired. There was also, as I mentioned, $1 million in one-time repair funding added by the mayor, which was approved by council. So on this slide, this highlights some of the key drivers impacting our budget constraints that we're looking at in fiscal year 26-27. Number one, the reduction of general fund support, as mentioned, the support for operations due to expiring one-time funds. This accounted for about 4% of our operating budget in fiscal year 25-26, and that is one of the primary drivers. The second item is the lack of new TIF resources in 4 of the 6 new TIF districts. There was no new TIF generated in West Side, Lloyd, Central East Side, or the Space District, which accounted for about $700,000 in planned operations in the forecast for 26-27. And then also the continued spend down of sunsetting districts. Lentz, Central East Side, and Interstate are completing final projects over the next several years, and those final resources are being depleted in 26-27. And finally, there are delays in reaching the investment return goals for the Strategic Investment Fund as discussed through the TSCC hearing. There was an investment goal of around $3.5 million in return for our next fiscal year, and we are not quite there yet based on the timing of investments. To summarize the operating budget for next year, the total budget as recommended includes 95 positions. This is a net decrease of 10 positions from the current year budget across all departments. This includes the reduction in force resolution before you today. This reduces 13 positions, but adds back 3 FTE positions to help reconfigure functions across the agency. The recommended adopted budget also includes the addition of 1 limited-term position to help with the implementation of the new PSEF Clean Industry Grant Program. So that's a new position. The related personnel salary and benefits include planned packages to support staff who were in the 9 filled positions. The operating budget also maintains the required $1.2 million Prosper's share of the 1999 PERS pension obligation bond payments. That pension obligation requirement expires in 2029, will be fully repaid. And finally, the operating budget also maintains an administrative materials and service budget that includes all systems, facilities, audit, training, and other departmental non-project specific budgets for next fiscal year. And leadership will continue to review these budgets through the fiscal year to identify any additional shifts or adjustments that might be needed. So when looking at staffing components of the operating budget across the agency, the positions are funded by 41% by TIF districts, 34% by city general fund, and the remaining 25% by PSEF, SIF, and other sources. So this illustrates still a really strong dependence on TIF resources and general fund to support the operations of the agency in next fiscal year. Effective July 1, the operating budget will also be aligned with an updated organizational structure for the Development and Investment Department. As noted here, there's 2 new departments showing. Access to Capital Department. Yeah, we'll focus on lending and grant underwriting, and the deployment of the Real Estate and Community Development Department. They'll focus on real estate portfolio engagement and development activities in TIF districts. The 95 positions will include 88 full-time positions and 7 limited-term positions. Most of the limited-term positions are related to the PSEF contracts that have a specific term. Now, moving to recommended changes for the budget adoption today. Included in our recommendations for final adoption include several changes to support a couple of requirements for both programming and the operating budget. The general fund appropriations are recommended an addition of $200,000 to augment the $200,000 out of the $1 million that council allocated for storefronts and repair grants, so additional capacity. And that's coming out of program income from terminated TIF districts. We are also recommending adding a net $192,000 for administrative costs in our indirect overhead fund to account for planned city auditor charges based on the city grants audit that will be taking place throughout the year, and estimated costs to conduct ongoing reorganization of the Development Investment Department. Finally, there's also in the PSEF fund, the new LTE position that's recommended, and in the West Side TIF District, 2 key items appropriating $450,000 for property management costs, lease-up costs related to the Mason Airmen Building, and $500,000 to support matching funds to support a new grant request for Union Station. So this would be a partnership between ODOT and the city to support Union Station for federal funding. Summing up the budget from Exhibit A of the resolution, when all funds are rolled together, this highlights total resources, change in resources. The majority of the change related to the change in beginning fund balance is related to the budget action just heard on Rev 3, where there are certain TIF resources not needed this year. We're not going to draw on this year, and therefore we're removing that out of this year's budget. They won't be part of the beginning fund balance for next year's budget. We're just truing that up here. We will be drawing on those resources or drawing down those resources in the future as projects and programs need those resources. And the other adjustments are related to the actions recommended. And on the requirement side, appropriations rolled up on Exhibit A across administration, economic development, housing, infrastructure, and property redevelopment. Most of the change is related to the recommended ads for property management costs and the repair grants and the proposed matching funds for the Union Station grants. That makes up the $1 million ad under property redevelopment. The economic development ad is primarily the PSEF position and related administrative costs that will be applied to that contract. And administration represents some of the city audit costs that we are recognizing, as well as some of the reorganization costs that we're recognizing into next fiscal year. And with that, I will be happy to take any questions on the presentation, or actually I'm handing it over to Executive Director Wesley. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Commissioners, as Tony described in the budget presentation, we are facing serious funding constraints this year. General fund support is down. TIF revenue in our new districts has fallen short of projections, and SIF revenue is being generated more slowly than expected. To keep our operating budget in balance for fiscal year 26-27 and to make sure Prosper Portland's structure and cost basis works moving forward, we are reducing our workforce by a net of 10 full-time positions. We looked carefully at a number of positions and the work each of those roles do today. That review showed us that some of this work can be combined, shared across existing teams, or handled in new ways. And I would say this was a thorough process and a very difficult decision. We knew that given the budget we're working with, this was a necessary step we had to take in order to keep meeting the community's needs. These decisions are extremely challenging. Nothing about the decisions diminishes or discounts the significant accomplishments and important contributions of the people in these roles. In all cases, they have helped implement the mission of the agency and served our partners and our customers over the years. These reductions are about our budget. They are about our business needs and how Prosper is currently organized. And given the financial constraints we are working with, this is the structure we believe will enable the agency to operate effectively to serve our partners moving forward. As for the specifics, here's what it looks like. In total, 13 FTE positions have been identified for reduction or to be put on hold. 9 of these are currently filled positions in HR, in legal, in IT, procurement, and equity and policy. The remaining 4 are in economic development and development and investment and are being eliminated or put on hold until TIF revenue can support them in a future budget cycle. At the same time, 3 new positions will be created to bring some of this work together and to strengthen our resource development efforts. The net effect is a reduction of 10 full-time employee positions from this fiscal year to the next. Altogether, this lowers our personnel costs by about $2 million, roughly 10%, bringing the personnel budget to $20.9 million, the figure that Tony just walked through during the budget adoption presentation. Looking ahead, our focus is on putting our SIF and TIF resources to work effectively and building new resource development strategies so that we can stabilize our finances and grow them over time. That is all.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you for the presentation. Commissioners, do you have any questions, comments?
I have a question about the 3 new positions that were created. So if we're eliminating, I just want to follow the math here. So there are 9 positions total being eliminated that are full-time positions, 3 additional positions being created. How many vacancies are being eliminated?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. There's 13 positions that are being eliminated or put on hold. 9 of those are filled for this fiscal year. 4 are vacant, so that makes up the 13 total. And then 3 new positions for the reconfiguration, and that gets us to the net 10 positions.
And then on the 3 new positions, are we having current staff bid into those new positions based on their skill sets?
One role that is new was filled with an outside candidate. The other two have not been posted, so that determination has not been made yet.
So just to clarify, so we're eliminating some positions before we're posting new positions, so the timelines are not matching up?
Yeah, let me I'll yield to Tony in terms of how we walk it out, in terms of the changes we're making with the 3 new roles.
Yeah, the new positions are effective for funding in July 1st. I think some of those have been posted, or one was posted already. I don't
Yeah.
have all the details on that, but there was 7 of the positions that are ending on June 30th. 2 of the 9 positions will be ending on September 30th. So there is some differences on the final dates of those. Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. I just want to say, I think it's really important that if we are creating new positions and having a reduction in force, that we look internally and give people internally the option to move into those new positions before we eliminate positions. I think we can't be an economic development agency that does workforce development and not do the development of our own workforce. So I'll just say
Received.
that, and I think it's important that when you line up timelines around that provides those opportunities and some level of security for people. I think a reduction in force is always terrible.
Yes, ma'am.
And awful, and I do think that there's a little bit of a mismatch across city programs here. So I also think looking at the city's budget and the city's reduction in forces and also the city's new positions, I think frankly, there could be some shared work between our HR and the city to actually make sure that people are maybe shuffling around in positions so that we're actually not eliminating positions. And so I think it would be helpful if our HR would connect with the city's HR to make sure that people have a soft landing, if that's possible, within government. I think we have a lot of talent here. And I don't want to lose any of that talent, and I want to make sure that we are doing this in the most kind and thoughtful way that we possibly can, knowing that this has an extraordinary impact on people's lives. And yeah, I'm just incredibly sorry that we're making these cuts. And I hope that we can do that in a way that really is as kind as we can be in a very unkind situation.
Further comments? I assume we have no public testimony on this. Anybody else want to say anything? Just curious, couple random questions. One is the city doing a RIF as well? Broader city? Yeah. And what are their numbers like? Does anybody know?
I think it's through the core realignment that they're taking place that will result in some positions being eliminated, and that work is underway.
So I just wondered what the scale of that is. A pretty big layoff.
Yes, Chair Cruz, there's some significant reductions at the city that's occurring through, as Director Wesley said, through the core realignment, so how to reorganize certain functions more centrally at the city, but also with specific services and service packages that are being discussed. And that is also, I think, been discussed in between the city-approved budget in May and the process to adopt the city's budget, which is culminating tonight, actually. There isn't a final vote until tonight on the city's budget, so that's still under discussion.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'd heard that was coming down the path, but then hadn't heard anything further. Then the other thing I noticed just randomly looked like benefits had basically doubled in cost since 2024. Is that primarily health insurance, or is it other costs, or just idle curiosity? What accounts for that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a combination of PERS as well as health costs. So we've seen greater than 5% increases every year, sometimes higher than 10% in some plans for healthcare on an annual basis. And those premiums are one of the largest components of the personnel budget. But what's been really significant also over the last 10 years are biannual increases to PERS based on the rates. So the rates on average now are, I think, about 25%. This is a combination of both earlier plans, PERS 1, 2, and the more recent, since 2003, OPSRP. So the rates range between, combined rates between 18 to, I think, 27%. And that we are projecting to level out over the next 10 years, but and grow slower over the next couple of years in our forecast. So it's less, PERS is less of a factor going forward compared to health and other benefits that are part of the current package right now.
Thank you. All right. I'll just say, follow on to Commissioner Hagan's comments. Just terribly sorry about this RIF, and I know how hard people work in the agency, and so just really sorry to see this happen. But it's budget reality throughout the city, unfortunately. So, but the board appreciates everybody's great work, and you know, is hopeful that we'll see brighter days ahead in the future. So. So now we have two resolutions we need to vote on, so we'll have to vote on them separately. Would someone like to make a motion to approve resolution number 7651? This is approving the RIF itself.
I'm sorry, can I just clarify? I thought resolution 7651 is not approving the RIF. It's approving that the executive director approves the RIF and the reductions of the staff. That what we're approving is the thank you for their thank you for your service. Is that correct?
So that would technically happen as part of the budget approval, but we're
Which is
also doing it
the-
separately as a separate resolution as well.
Is the budget approval, which is the resolution 7652, correct?
Right, but the 7652 assumes that
I
the RIFs have
understand.
taken place, so we're doing that in a prior 7651.
I see.
Yeah, because under the personnel policy, the board is imbued with the authority, not the ED, to approve RIFs.
Okay. That was not sort of my takeaway around the resolution. I'll just say that that's not my takeaway. My takeaway was that we approved the budget and then the executive director would decide how to implement the budget. Because I didn't go through the RIF process as if I would be approving a reduction in force. I didn't review the staff organization chart as if I would be approving a reduction in force. I didn't make a decision about whether we move managers or whether we move frontline staff. I mean, none of those. I didn't look into any of those things before this decision. So I understand that I'm supposed to approve the budget and I'm financially obligated to approve the budget here. I was not under the understanding on the personnel policy that I was supposed to do that work before this meeting, and I didn't do any of that.
Yeah, Commissioner, I understand. If it helps, the personnel policy directs the executive director to do all the things you describe, and then also says that the board has the final
say.
approval. So maybe that's the same line that you're discussing.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay. So back to the resolution. Would someone like to make a motion to approve resolution number 7651?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion to second.
Okay. Any further discussion or comment? Okay. All those in favor of resolution 7651?
Aye.
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 No.
We have 1 no and 4 ayes. Okay. Then we have resolution number 7652. This is adopting the annual budget. Would someone like to make a motion to approve resolution number 7652?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 7652.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of resolution number 7652? Aye.
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 Okay, that one was unanimous. All right, thank you. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for your good work on the budget as well.
If
a
I
lot of
may,
work.
I would like to offer a big thanks to all the Prosper Portland staff. It's been a very challenging budget year again, and big thanks to the budget team, Courtney Cohn, Chancellor Lee, the whole finance team, whole ECTEV team, D&I team, EPC team, Eric and Hope and everybody on the team. A lot of hours in putting the budget together, council meetings, committee meetings. I appreciate everybody's support and diligence on it.
I'll ditto those comments, and I just want to say in front of our commissioners how important Tony Barnes has been during this time in right-sizing and helping us get through this budget process. Our policy team, I just want to ditto your comments. Our policy team worked overnight in cases, over the weekend, our legal team, extended hours. So everyone who's touched this in this unsettling time, we owe a tremendous amount of gratitude. And our hope is that we're out of the weeds after tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to turn the page while still honoring the work of our teammates. So thank you once again.
Great, thank you. Okay, next we have item 11. This is an action item approving the executive director to execute an amended and restated disposition and development agreement with Portland State University for redevelopment of multiple properties within the North Macadam Tax Increment Financing District. And Brian Moore, Development Manager, Joe Molesky, Project Manager, and Jennifer Manhard, Project Manager, will present. So, welcome to all three of you.
Good afternoon, Chair Cruz, Commissioners, and Executive Director Wesley. Bear with me while I get our screen going here. All right. I'm Brian Moore, Development Manager, and with me are Joe Molesky and Jen Manhard. Together, we manage the North Macadam TIF District for Prosper Portland. You heard earlier from Executive Director Wesley calling out a series of wins that Joe and Jen have had this month in the North Mac District. We're very excited about that. This item is another one of those. Unfortunately for us, fortunately for Joe, Joe has decided to retire. And so this is his last board meeting and his final hurrah. He did say that he wanted to finish this DDA before he retired. And I had a private conversation with PSU to see if we could extend the negotiations another year. We all decided that it was better for the city to finish the negotiations this fiscal year. All right. So the action item that we have in front of you is a request for approval of the restated disposition and development agreement between Prosper Portland and PSU for a variety of projects that are within the Portland State University campus and the North Mac TIF District. And I will hand it over to Jen to talk a little bit about our relationship and the work that we've done with PSU in the North Mac TIF District.
Thank you, Brian. Prosper Portland and Portland State University have had a strong and beneficial relationship. Our work in the North Macadam TIF District has helped us deliver on all 4 of the key objectives of Advance Portland. These outcomes that are shown can be seen in the collective investments over the past decade and the slate of projects that we will partner on in the next few years. As I'm sure you're aware, Portland State University is located in the southern end of downtown, bounded by I-405 and Market Street. Only a small portion of the North Macadam TIF district overlaps with Portland State's campus. And in line with TIF district regulation, our investments in Portland State are limited to those properties within that overlap of the boundary with the TIF district. This map shows that overlap, as well as the 3 properties that are part of the new DDA that Joe will talk about shortly. And for context and background, Prosper and PSU entered the original DDA in 2014, and that agreement has resulted in several exceptional projects. Prosper has invested over $17 million in grants and land contributions to support the renovation and expansion of PSU's School of Business, the Carl Miller Center, the development of the Vanport Building, which houses the PSU Graduate School of Education, the OHSU PSU School of Public Health, the PCC Dental Programs, and the City of Portland's Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. And in 2024, the relocation and enhancement of the PSU Business Accelerator. While our partnership has made great strides through this DDA, a couple of projects, namely the 4th and Lincoln and University Place projects, were delayed due to the major economic changes due to the pandemic. This updated DDA will address these changing economic dynamics, as well as strengthen our partnership with PSU in order to complete these remaining projects. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe to talk about the new DDA and our work moving forward.
Thanks, Jen. Chair Cruz, Commissioners, Executive Director Wesley, happy to be here. I'm also looking forward to the only time I'm talking in front of a camera when I'm talking FaceTime with my grandkids in retirement. But I'm here today to present our PSU DDA terms, which we've worked hard with our partners at PSU. This property map shows the locations of the DDA subject properties centered around Southwest 4th Avenue and Lincoln Street. The Southwest and Lincoln property shown in orange, and the University Place properties shown in purple were included in the original DDA for redevelopment for highest and best use. The former Arts and Design building properties located adjacent to the 4th and Lincoln properties and shown in blue will be demolished by PSU. PSU is currently constructing the new Snitzer School of Art, History, and Design on Southwest Park, and that will open in the fall. And the University Place property is the proposed PSU location for a new Performing Arts and Cultural Center. I will discuss the redevelopment opportunities for these properties on the next few slides. The combined 4th and Lincoln and former Arts and Design properties shown here is the most exciting element of the restated DDA as a revenue-generated housing redevelopment project. PSU acquired the 4th and Lincoln property in 2018 under the DDA. Prosper funded the acquisition with a $5.84 million contingent promissory note with the construction commencement requirement of January of 2024. Prosper and PSU see the value of combining the 4th and Lincoln and the former Arts and Design building properties, similar in size, but for a total of 0.94 acres for a full block development, and named the redevelopment project Project 4AD. Prosper and PSU will partner and will be joint owners of the 4AD properties and pursue mixed-use housing development opportunities. The 4AD joint the ownership structure will be in the form of a tenants in common agreement between Prosper and PSU, each with a 50% ownership interest. PSU will demolish the A&D building, and the parties will conduct a joint due diligence and development planning prior to the tenants in common. PSU's repayment obligation for the promissory note will be satisfied by the tenants in common. PSU and Prosper will conduct joint marketing for a mixed-use housing development partner for all vertical development. PSU and Prosper will share net revenue from the future ground lease 50-50 based on our ownership shares. PSU will have the primary role of developer and property manager, and Prosper's role is limited to investor and public partner. Prosper's resources committed to 4AD is limited to the existing $5.84 million forgivable loan. If PSU and Prosper are unable to reach agreement on a 4AD tenants in common agreement, then the promissory note will be required for payment. Prosper and PSU look forward to partnering on the redevelopment of 4AD and adding additional housing and activation to our downtown. The next property, this is the 4.25 acre University Place property, long considered a prime redevelopment site served by light rail by the Max Orange Line. It currently operates as a 2-star hotel built in 1969. The restated DDA extends the prior DDA funding commitment of $7.6 million for redevelopment that may include site preparation, demolition of existing structures, utilities, and site work. PSU has proposed the University Place property as the location for a new performing arts and cultural center with an accompanying hotel. This Prosper redevelopment commitment in this restated DDA is focused solely on the University Place site development, not the proposed performing arts and cultural center, which will require a separate agreement between the city and PSU. The DDA funding commitment has a construction commencement requirement by June of 2028, which may be revisited and reconsidered by the parties in the future. PSU may also propose an alternative University Place project for Prosper review and approval that would utilize the University Place redevelopment DDA funding allocation. The last and new scope item for this DDA is placemaking. Placemaking is a collaborative, community-driven process that transforms spaces into meaningful places by weaving together the stories, cultures, and aspirations of the community. PSU is creating a campus that reflects the rich heritage and diverse identities of its students, staff, and neighbors, turning shared vision into vibrant, inclusive spaces that engage, inform, and connect. A few examples of placemaking projects include Montgomery Plaza, Oak Savannah, the murals, the Courts 2.0 skate park, and a campus community garden. PSU and Prosper will collaborate on placemaking opportunities within the NMAC TIF district. Prosper will commit up to $300,000 for one or more future placemaking projects proposed by PSU. That concludes our presentation, but I also wanted to provide an opportunity for our partners at PSU to say a few words about our partnership, as well as the amended and restated DDA. I would like to invite Sarah Henneke, the PSU's Director of Planning and Sustainability Office, to share some words with the Commission. And I want to also acknowledge Don Forsythe here, who was primary with the negotiation of the DDA. Then we will be open to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Oh, hello. Good afternoon. Thank you, Joe. Chair, Commissioners, Executive Director Wesley, happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to present on behalf of Portland State University today. As Joe mentioned, my name is Sarah Heineke, Director of Planning and Sustainability, and I appreciate the continued partnership as we work together to advance the future of our downtown campus and the city. I'm here to speak in support of the proposed renewal and amendment to the DDA. Since our initial agreement in 2014, PSU and Prosper have maintained a shared vision, leveraging the potential of our university district, specifically the Jasmine Blocks, the Budget Rent-A-Car site, and the University Place, to eliminate blight, stimulate economic activity, and to integrate our campus into the broader urban fabric. While the challenging economic climate has outpaced our original development timelines, our institutional commitment remains steadfast. The proposed renewal is a pragmatic step forward, allowing us to adjust our approach to current market realities while continuing to prioritize critical outcomes, including housing conversion, equity, and sustainability. We recognize that the path to long-term growth requires navigating significant headwinds. PSU is actively addressing enrollment and financial challenges through a strategic deficit reduction process anchored by 3 guiding principles: prioritizing the student experience, considering the long-term future of the university, and aligning our personnel with our strategic needs. Also, in terms of placemaking, I'll say our work on the ground continues to demonstrate the momentum of this partnership. Placemaking in action is demonstrated by the fact that we are finalizing the Courts 2.0, a DIY urban-style skate park at the 4th and Lincoln site, developed in partnership with Prosper and Skaters for Portland Skate Parks. We anticipate completing the final punch list by mid-July this year. We have an integrated campus vision in terms of our placemaking agenda. Our planning and sustainability office is collaborating with faculty, students, professional design partners, and others to create a gateway into South Downtown. This project aligns with the Green Loop and seeks to extend the Oak Savannah District, bringing the Center for Tribal Nations across the Tillicum Crossing and Lincoln Street. We have also established a small incentive award to foster student-led placemaking projects across campus, with initial pilots launching this coming academic year. By renewing this DDA, we are ensuring that our multi-phase urban subdivision, in quotes, strategy remains viable. We are eager to continue this essential work, and I thank you for your ongoing support of this vital partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us today, too. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Okay, please.
I think, first, I just want to say I really appreciate the partnership with PSU, and I think PSU is a vital, critical part of our city, and I really need you all to succeed in an epic way for a variety of reasons. So I guess my first question is the bonds that, has the state already issued the bonds for you to move forward with the development of these projects? And have you already met your match on the bonds?
I'm going to defer that question to Don. He is our in-house bond expert.
Treasurer. The bonds have not been sold. They'll be sold next February through June. Match will be required to be certified by the end of February 2027. And that's for $50 million.
But the state has already authorized you to move forward with the
Yes.
issuance of the bonds. Okay.
Should we certify the match, right?
Okay. And then what's the plan to get your match?
We're still pushing the city for demonstrations of confidence. We have $12.5 million of philanthropy, and we also would like to use the 7.6 in match for the TIF contribution, which we have done in all other projects with G-bonds. We've used Prosper's TIF contributions as match.
I think my next question is about the additional hotel. I think that, you know, had a tough track record at PSU with operating the current hotel and, you know, I think an upgraded hotel. So what's the plan for the future operations of the hotel?
We're currently in negotiations with a private market proposal. We're entering into an exclusive negotiating agreement for the development of that property. PSU will not be operating that property or utilizing our debt capacity to build it.
Or utilizing your debt capacity?
We are not using any public debt for that. We're trying to get public confidence or private confidence back into the Portland market, specifically in lodging.
I think those are sort of my questions. I feel like I just want to say as we move forward, I've really struggled with this. I think that we absolutely have to do the redevelopment, and we have to do the redevelopment in this TIF district and a fundamental redevelopment of PSU to make it a successful university. My hope and my wish out of this is that not only do we continue the sort of Prosper engagement that it's going to take to make PSU the successful and vibrant urban university that we all deserve and it can be, I really hope that not only Prosper can partner with just PSU, but we need a partnership with the city and the governor's office and the state in particular. It is a critical part of our economy. for PSU to succeed. And I would say that's not just the responsibility of PSU, it's not the responsibility of Prosper, it's a shared responsibility in our city, and I would also include OHSU in that shared success as well. So I don't know how we get from this project to that, but I do think we need to get to that very, very quickly, because if you're not able to sort of be successful, then we're all gonna fail here. And I would like us to partner to do more projects with PSU in the future to build this vibrant community. So I don't know how to sort of say, as a part of this, I think on this resolution, it's been a tough place for me to get to here. I'm gonna go ahead and support the resolution, but I want us to figure out how do we get to the next step on a much more holistic plan that's maybe even outside of the TIF district with the parties who are responsible involved.
Thank you. Do you have other comments from the commissioners?
Yeah. Congratulations, Joe, on some complex steel crafting. Just one question, have the terms of the land lease been determined or contemplated yet?
No, not yet. So we have an outline for a future tenants in common agreement that we would then develop the strategy for procuring a development partner and executing a future ground lease on the combined 4 AD properties.
Do you contemplate that you would subordinate that ground lease to a construction loan or not, or have you thought about that yet?
I think that is to be determined as we perform our development.
Because that would be a form of debt, essentially, public debt.
Not our normal practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to say congratulations, Joe, on your retirement. I can tell by the smile on your face that you're looking forward to it. And great job on the partnership with PSU. I know that the great things are about to happen in that area, and I'm looking forward to seeing what those are. Thank you all for the work that you've done.
I just had a quick question about the tenant in common arrangement. In my time on the board, which it's been a long time now, I don't think I've seen exactly this mechanism used before for one of our deals and in partnership with anyone else. And I just wondered if you guys had any thoughts about that. And this is something we might use more in the future.
Well,
Interestingly enough, we did this, a similar tenants in common agreement once before with the Port of Portland for projects at Terminal 2.
Oh, yeah.
It was a short-lived project because they were able to pivot and work with some private parties to continue advancing that forward. The strategy behind this particular agreement was really, it came out of the negotiations with PSU in identifying our shared interests in really seeing this property be a revenue-generating property for both organizations. We have a shared desire to see it developed for highest and best use to be a long-term revenue generator, both for PSU and for Prosper Portland. We expect the specifics of the tenants in a common agreement to provide provisions for either party to exit should you all or the future you all decide that that's appropriate, and similarly for PSU.
Great, thank you, appreciate that. Yes, please.
All the cultural pieces in that area as they're coming together, so when folks can see all the, especially the tribal and all of that, I think that is absolutely amazing to do that because sometimes it goes unseen because a lot of folks don't get down to that part of Portland State. So I think making it sure that everything is connecting is a great idea. And then also want to say thank you for getting out the hotel business too, because that's greatly appreciated.
All right, Commissioner Alvarez, did you have any comments or questions? Okay.
Nope, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, well, I'd like to just defer our vote on this if it'll keep Joe around longer. What do people think? Yeah. Just kidding. Really, Joe, congratulations, and the Prosper will miss you. We'll all miss you. So thanks for your great work. Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to approve resolution number 7653?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And the voice of our former vice president, you did it, Joe.
Okay, next up, we have item 12. This is also an action item authorizing the sale of 1.22 acres of Prosper Portland-owned property in the Interstate Corridor Tax Increment Financing District, and Will Thayer will present. Welcome back, Will.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Cruz, Commissioners, Executive Director Wesley. Just give me 1 second to connect my presentation, and then we'll get going and get us all out of here.
Speak for yourself. We have executive session.
Okay. Get me out of here then. Okay, so today I'll be presenting a request to sell one of our real estate assets. The board action being requested today is to authorize the sale of the Nelson property, which is located in the Interstate Corridor, to Figure Plant, who is a tenant in the property. This disposition aligns with the Advanced Portland Plan by supporting the growth and health of an anchor business in the Kenton Business District. Again, that anchor business is Figure Plant, a longtime creative production company that has operated out of the Nelson Building for nearly 20 years. Acquisition of the property will allow Figure Plant to continue to grow in place, preserving over 30 living wage jobs there in North Portland. Additionally, the transaction will support second-order economic impacts because many of Figure Plant's suppliers are other local small businesses here in the metro region. A little bit of information about the property itself. It's a collection of light industrial buildings constructed over several years, starting in 1958. The property has 4 separately demised spaces and includes several industrial amenities like a laydown yard, high power capacity, overhead cranes, and on-site parking. In terms of background, the property was purchased in 2011 as part of a portfolio transaction with 2 other properties that are in the immediate area. The acquisition basis for that portfolio transaction was split between the properties, with $1.5 million being allocated to this property. Figure Plant, being the prospective purchaser, was a tenant in the building at the time that we acquired it. So they've been a tenant there for our entire tenure as building owners. Then over the next decade, Prosper Portland invested about $500,000 in repairs and tenant improvements in order to support business activities at the building. And then, as with many, many firms across the metro area, Figure Plant was impacted by the effects of COVID, and we provided them with various support during that period in the form of rent abatements, rent forgiveness, and other types of support. After several years of making a recovery from that period, in 2025, Figure Plant expressed interest in purchasing the property from us. So staff and Figure Plant have arrived at a set of terms for disposition of the asset that represents fair market price for the property. Figure Plant has deposited $30,000 of non-refundable earnest money and is currently working through their 60-day due diligence period. One thing of note, there are 2 other tenants in the property, and those leases will be assigned to Figure Plant as part of the transaction. And then here's the estimated timeline for the transaction. The PSA was signed on June 5th. which included a board approval contingency, the subject of this action item here today. If the board authorizes the sale, then the due diligence will continue until early August with an estimated closing date about a month later, subject to their approval of the due diligence review. And then here's some historical financial and budget information relating to our ownership of the property over that period of time. Proceeds of the sale will be retained in the interstate TIF district until the district's priorities are complete, at which point then any remaining funds may be transferred to our citywide funds at that time. Additionally, a smaller amount of money, but currently budgeted funds for ongoing property management of this property would thereafter be released and able to be reallocated to other priorities in the district. And that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
Just one more clarification. So $30,000 of non-refundable earnest money, and then they do still have an outstanding lease balance, rental balance. Has that been paid back, or that's part of the sale, part of the arrangement with the sale?
That is not a part of the arrangement of the sale. Any outstanding payments due under the lease will be taken care of outside of this transaction.
I see, okay. But they haven't paid, they're still not current on their lease,
That's
right?
correct.
Okay,
Yes, they're still not current.
okay, thank you.
Other comments, questions? No? Okay. All right.
So are we gonna lose money by them, are we gonna lose their rent?
No, we will not.
Okay.
We will not be losing any of the rent money.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay then, would somebody like to make a motion to approve resolution number 7654 regarding sale of the Nelson Building property?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thanks, Will, for
Thank
your
you.
good work on this. Okay. So, now we will shift and we will go to our executive session. So I'm going to read a brief disclaimer. The Prosper Portland Board will now meet in executive session pursuant to Oregon Revised Statutes 1926602H to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff are allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session. The commission meeting will adjourn and will not reconvene in open session following the executive session. Okay, so we will take a brief moment to clear and then